Hello everyone. Um, our today's topic is based on Aristotle's Poetics. This topic is included in the syllabus of MA Final Paper 5th Principle of Criticism. So, let's begin and know what Poetics is all about. Poetics was composed around 330 BC and it is very often said a response to Plato's attack on art. Aristotle's Poetic can be read as a response to Plato's attack on art. Aristotle, who lived from 384 BC to 322 BCE, was a student at Plato's academy from the time he was 17 until Plato's death some 20 years later. He spent the next 12 years engaging in scientific research and serving as tutor to the then teenaged Alexander the Great. He returned to Athens in 335 BCE and founded his own school on steps of the Lyceum. He remained there until 323 BCE when he was forced to leave as a result of his association with Alexander. He died a year later of natural causes. The Lyceum remained open until 525 CE when it was closed by the Emperor Justinian. Now, a brief synopsis or introduction to the Poetics. Aristotle proposes to discuss poetry, which he defines as a means of mimesis or imitation. Okay, so he discusses poetry as a medium of imitation to copy something by means of language, rhythm, and harmony. So these are the sources for poetic imitation. As creatures who thrive on imitation, we are naturally drawn to poetry. In particular, Aristotle focuses his discourse on tragedy. So in this work, the main focus is on tragedy, which uses dramatic rather than narrative form and deals with agents who are better than us ourselves. Tragedy serves to arouse the emotions of pity and fear and to effect a catharsis of these emotions. Excuse me. So, Aristotle discusses in Poetics mainly his main concern, which he discusses or main focus is on tragedy, which he says is dramatic and rather than narrative in its form, and it deals with the agents who are better than ourselves. So the characters of the tragedy are not like us, they are the people of some extraordinary world. Tragedy serves to arouse the emotions of pity and fear, and when we witness a tragedy, when we watch a tragedy, it arouses the emotions of pity and fear into us, and to effect a catharsis of these emotions and the purgation or purification of the emotions is effected by the tragedy. Aristotle divides tragedy into 6 different parts, ranking them in order from most important to least important. So the most important is mythos or plot, then second is character, third is thought, fourth is diction, fifth is melody, and sixth is spectacle. So these are the 6 component of tragedy which we will discuss in the course of the lecture, in the course of the Poetics. So next he says that the first essential to create a good tragedy is that it should maintain unity of plot. This means that the plot must move from beginning to end according to a tightly organized sequence of necessary or probable events. The beginning should not necessarily follow from any earlier events, and the end should tie up all loose ends and not produce any necessary consequences. The plot can also be enhanced by an intelligent use of peripatria or reversal and anagnorisis or recognition. These elements work best when they are made an integral part of the plot. A plot should consistent a plot should consist of a hero going from happiness to misery. The hero should be portrayed consistently and in good light, though the poet should also remain true to what we know of the character. The misery should be the result of some hemorrhagia or error on the part of the hero. The tragic plot must always involve some sort of tragic deed which can be done or left undone, and this deed can be approached either with full knowledge or in ignorance. Then Aristotle discusses thought and diction and then moves on to address epic poetry. Epic poetry is similar to tragedy in many ways, although it is generally longer, more fantastic, and deals with a greater scope of attention. After addressing some problems of criticism, Aristotle argues that tragedy is superior to epic poetry. Now let us discuss some important terms which Aristotle uses in the course of the Poetics before we go into the summary or into the detailed study of the Poetics, Aristotle's work. So first term, which is the one of the most important, is mimesis. Mimesis, an act of creating in someone's mind through artistic representation an idea or ideas that the person will associate with past experience. Roughly translatable as imitation, mimesis in poetry is an act of telling stories that are set in the real world. The events in the story need not have taken place, but the telling of a story will help the listener or viewer to imagine the events taking place in the real world. So the mimesis, which we can translate as imitation, is a copy of the events which happen in the real world, or the events, although they don't not necessarily that they happen into the real world, but they are presented into a way that they can happen to anyone into the real world. Means they can be real, they can be actual events if they are not, they are present there or not. So the listener or viewer or the spectacle or the audience, they should have a framework, a picture into their mind that whatever they are seeing, what they are witnessing in the tragedy is whatever they are witnessing in the tragedy is something which can happen to anyone. So it should appear real to the viewers. So mimesis is the art of creating something in someone's mind through artistic representation. So the artist will play a part before us and we will be thinking that as if something is actually happening into the world. Next term, important, a very important term is hemorrhagia. The word translates almost directly as error, though it is often rendered more elaborately as tragic flaw. So we can say hemorrhagia is a synonym of tragic flaw or error on the part of the hero. Tragedy, according to Aristotle, involves the downfall of a hero, and this downfall is effected by some error on the part of the hero. The error need not be an overarching moral failing. It could be a simple matter of not knowing something or forgetting something. So an error or tragic flaw, a flaw or a fault which is tragic, which is very drastic on the part of the tragic hero. Tragic hero, why do we call it tragic hero? Because he is the hero of a tragedy, and tragedy actually it involves or it rotates or revolves around the downfall of a hero. Definitely, if there would not be downfall of the hero, why would we love to enjoy the tragedy? So when we enjoy tragedy, we definitely witness someone's downfall, and this downfall is affected or is being happened due to some error on the part of the hero, and the error need not to be the error of lack of morality or moral failing. It could be a simple matter of not knowing something, forgetting something, ignorance, etc. Aristotle has discussed many kind of hemorrhagia or tragic flaws in the course of the Poetics. We will discuss it at length when we read in the chapter. Next important term is Anagnorisis. This word translates as recognition or discovery. In tragedy, it describes the moment when the hero or some other character passes from ignorance to knowledge. This could be a recognition of a long lost friend or family member, or it could be a sudden recognition of some fact about oneself, as in the case with Oedipus. Okay, so when we study the case of Oedipus the Rex, who was the king of Thebes, we find that he, due to the course, as per the course of events, he comes to know that he has murdered his own father and he has married his own mother. So this discovery comes to him, this recognition comes to him, this anagnorisis comes to him very later into the drama. So this is the moment, then the moment when these facts are discovered or recognized by the tragic hero is called anagnorisis, and very often it occurs into the climax of a tragedy. Climax is a place when things are at its height, all the events or all the tragic events are at its height. Next is mythos. So when dealing with tragedy, this word is usually translated as plot, but unlike plot, mythos can be applied to all works of art. Not so much a matter of what happens in what order. Mythos deals with how the elements of a tragedy or a painting, sculpture, etc. come together to form a coherent and unified whole. The overall message or impression that we come away with is what is conveyed to us by the mythos of a piece. So mythos, we can broadly say it is a plot, and it can be applied to all works of art. It can be applied to painting, it can be applied to sculpture, it can be applied to poetry and tragedy. Okay, so it is something which makes events together into a unified whole. Okay, so the mythos conveys us the message. Next, again a very important term, that is catharsis. It is very often it can be spelled as catharsis, catharsis. So catharsis, which actually is translated, normally used in ancient Greece by doctors to mean purgation, or by priests to mean purification. In the context of tragedy, Aristotle uses it to talk about a purgation or purification of emotions. So what doctor calls a purgation or what a priest calls a purification is Aristotle calls in a tragedy is a catharsis. That is a catharsis of emotions. Presumably, this means that catharsis is a release of built up emotional energy, much like a good cry. So after catharsis, we reach a moral, stable and neutral emotional state. So when we witness someone's pain on the other side of the stage or the other side of the curtain, we start crying, and that crying makes us realize that there is so much pain in the world and we are not alone who is suffering from the various kinds of pain. And this is called catharsis, which purifies our emotions from inside and make us feel light, make us feel very light-hearted and make us feel good after witnessing a tragedy. That is catharsis. Next is peripatria. Peripatria is a reversal, that is either from good to bad or bad to good, a reversal of the fortune. It can be good to bad, it can be bad to good. Peripatria often occurs at the climax of the story, often prompted by the anagnorisis. So peripatria is often a result of anagnorisis or discovery. So when the discovery happens, it results into something. It can make things better or it can make things worse. So indeed we might say that the peripathias, the climax of a story, it is a turning point in the action where things begin to move towards a conclusion. When there is a discovery and where there is a revival or reversal of the fortune of the tragic hero, it leads to the conclusion. Next is lucis. Lucis, which literally means untying. The lucis is all the action in a tragedy from the climax onward. So till the climax, all the actions are tied into one knot, and it keeps the audience intact, okay, captivated with the tragedy. So when we move towards lucis, these are the action after the climax, okay. All the plot threads have been woven together in the decess are slowly reveled until we reach the conclusion of the play. So the next term is decess. Decess, which literally means tying. The decess is all the action in a tragedy leading up to the climax. So all the tied or all the connected events which lead us towards the climax, and after the climax we move toward the lucis. Plot threads are craftily woven together to form a more and more complex mess. At the peripatria or turning point, these plot threads begin to unravel in what is called the lucis or denouement. Okay, denouement, that is, we can say, the end of the drama. Okay, so these are the important terms: decess, lucis, peripatria, catharsis, mythos, anagnorisis, hemorrhagia, and mimesis, which on which Aristotle's Poetics or his concept of tragedy, it it is founded or based on these important terms. So this is all for now. In our next lecture, we will go through chapter-wise discussion of the Aristotle's Poetics. So that's all for now. You can ask your questions into the comment box, or you can message me personally on my WhatsApp number. Thank you very much. Hope this video will be useful for you all. Thank you so much.